Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here's your detailed weather forecast update for Thursday, the 11th of September 2025. The weather system currently moving across New South Wales is beginning to ease off out of the state at this point in time, but we still have had some pretty impressive severe weather impacts. We've got rainfall coming through for far north Queensland and also a few more storm fronts coming through for southwestern and southeastern Australia. All that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast update. If you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things right now with New South Wales and that large storm system, which is now developing quite nicely as an east coast low into the East Australian current, but it's moving away from the New South Wales coastline, and as you would expect, over the next couple of hours, conditions are going to begin to ease off for the eastern seaboard. What a night it's been, though, for the Sydney area, and also just a little bit further south into the Illawarra forecast district, down through Wollongong, and then right down towards Point Perpendicular. This has been a very strong storm system. It's definitely packed a little bit more of a punch than what the forecast models were initially suggesting, especially on the rainfall side of things. The winds haven't really been that significant across the New South Wales east coast yet. It looks like the wind speeds aren't actually going to pick up at this point in time, but mark my words, they will be blowing like crazy out to sea in this storm system here. In fact, you can see if we turn on wind observations at this station here at Cronulla, 66 km/h wind gusts. When I was researching this forecast update, they were blowing up to 80 km/h wind gusts. So the winds certainly are there with this system, but it's mainly been the rainfall. I mean, overnight, Sydney had a prolonged period of moderate to heavy rainfall move through, and it's left some pretty significant numbers in the rain gauges. In fact, for Sydney, that's 117 millimetres so far, making it their wettest September day, I believe, since the 1800s. Further south, down around Wollongong, we've had falls between 140 and 180 millimetres, and a couple of totals above 180 millimetres, getting closer to 200 millimetres now, with rainfall still steadily falling towards the north of Wollongong. Minor flooding has begun at a few rivers, especially into some of the catchments that go into the Warragamba Dam outside of Sydney. We have had a few rivers go towards a minor flooding level, and river levels are rising, so there is a chance of moderate flooding occurring. However, it is going to be in some of those smaller river levels, and we're not expecting major impacts as a result of this flooding, which is good news here. I think Sydney and the East Coast just had enough dry weather, like just enough dry weather to get them ready for this sort of storm system and for this sort of storm front, which is very good news indeed. The rainfall definitely has been a little bit heavier than what the forecast models were initially suggesting, especially for the Sydney metro area, so it's good that they had a little bit of time to dry out ahead of this storm, that is for sure. But yeah, still some heavy falls occurring right now. There's a little bit of a band moving in towards the Wollongong Sydney area. You can see actually just towards the south of Sydney, there are some respectable rain rates. I keep forgetting that I can't see them on this imagery anymore, but we're talking about falls between 10 to 15 millimetres an hour. Basically what happened last night, but just for another hour or two throughout the Sydney area. But you can see rainfall really beginning to ease off and pull away from the Sydney area. There are some good bands as well around the low pressure system centre of the storm, which is situated just towards the east-southeast of Newcastle this morning, but it isn't making itself felt, or it isn't really making itself felt quite significantly around the shore. So we're not expecting significant impacts through the Hunter region anymore or into the mid-north coast. The rainfall that has fallen there and the thunderstorms that have moved through there have most certainly done. Now, this is not a tropical cyclone, even though it does look a little bit like one. This is what we call an extratropical cyclone. Now, the difference between a tropical and an extratropical cyclone is extratropical cyclones form outside of the tropical zone. So extra outside is a bit of a confusing term, but this is an extratropical cyclone by definition. It's also very likely to be given the classification of an east coast low. That's definitely quite a rare occurrence to happen. Some years we don't even get any east coast lows, but this storm here truly is a significant one. It's very strong indeed, and you can see it's only expected to get stronger into the next couple of hours as it pulls further away. Lord Howe Island is going to get clobbered by this storm later this afternoon into this evening. Southerly winds between 100 to 125 km/h gusts are expected, and some pretty significant waves to go with that as well. This storm system is then going to head further out into the Tasman Sea. It's going to weaken up a little bit because it is going to lose some of that kind of polar energy that it's managed to sweep itself up because of how far south it's moved. And then it's going to go into the North Island of New Zealand early tomorrow morning, and it's going to give them a pretty good whack as well. The South Island actually looks to dodge this system here, but the North Island really is going to get a pretty good whack from this system too. Norfolk Island also expecting some pretty strong winds as a result of this weather system, but as you can see, for the New South Wales coastline, conditions are going to very quickly begin to ease off in the next couple of hours, and it looks like tomorrow is actually going to be quite a pleasant day. At least it's going to start off very pleasantly. with weather conditions actually expected to be quite fine as that high pressure ridge really does begin to build out of the west at this point in time. But yeah, conditions looking pretty healthy and pretty decent across much of New South Wales as we head out towards the weekend, which is very good news indeed, especially in the wake of such a significant and such a serious storm impact. This has been very widespread. There's been a whole scope of impacts as a result of this low pressure system. I mean, the severe thunderstorm outbreaks alone that we've been seeing as a result of this storm system have been crazy for this time of the year. 456,000 lightning strikes Tuesday afternoon around Birdsville, or within 800 kilometers of Birdsville rather. A tornado observed yesterday outside of Young. I know a lot of people get very skeptical when we talk about tornadoes in Australia. Yes, they do happen. They are exceedingly rare. So to see one in early September and to have one as defined and as clear as the one that we had yesterday outside of Young, that was absolutely mind-bending stuff for September. So we really are looking at quite a serious storm season if what we've seen so far is an indicator of what we're going to be seeing in the next couple of months. So talking about rainfall accumulations, we have had some pretty significant falls, but you can see rainfall accumulations from this point onwards, there's no more significant rainfall making events for the New South Wales East Coast, at least for the next 2 weeks, and most likely out to the end of September at this point in time. Rainfall is expected to return in a pretty significant fashion in late October for New South Wales, but at this point in time, it looks like we're going to get a little bit more of that drier weather feels across New South Wales, and especially throughout parts of the East Coast that have been absolutely saturated in the last couple of months, and that rainfall has still continued to fall as we saw last night. Now I'm going to go to southeastern and southwestern Australia in a second because there are some storm systems that I would like to talk about. I just want to stop briefly and talk about the weather up and towards far north Queensland. Rainfall is back on the forecast in a pretty significant fashion, and it has been for the last couple of days. Once again this weekend, but then again later on into the forecast period in towards late September. It's definitely around this time of the year when we start to see rainfall accumulations begin to build up in far north Queensland. And I just want to say that 100 millimetres is not much rainfall for them at all by any stretch of the imagination, but we are now starting to see some proper rainfall accumulations pile on onto the forecast, which means the wet season is just days or weeks away for parts of the Cassowary Coast and the Daintree rainforest. You can see no rainfall is expected today. In fact, clear conditions expected until about tomorrow afternoon when the weather is expected to turn as that southeasterly flow begins to pipe itself up. Rainfall will begin to move into the Cassowary Coast from about midday tomorrow. It's not really going to pick up at all through Friday, but it will pick up properly on Saturday by the looks of things, with some good storms expected towards the west of the Atherton Tablelands into the Cape York Peninsula. Like we talked about yesterday, convective available potential energy values aren't really there for this thunderstorm outbreak, if I could call it an outbreak, but we are definitely expecting some decent pulse thunderstorm activity over the Atherton Tablelands and into the western Cape York Peninsula. Some pretty good pulse thunderstorm activity is most certainly a possibility at this point in time. Showers and rainfall will continue later on into Saturday night throughout the Cape York Peninsula, and then you can see this low pressure trough kind of get itself set up a little bit further offshore from the Cape York Peninsula. It doesn't look like it's going to give the far north Queensland, Cassowary Coast or the Daintree rainforest anything in the way of significant rainfall, but a few more showers are expected to be pulled in around this storm system, and you can see showers continuing through Sunday and into Monday before they're expected to ease off a little bit on Tuesday. And then as we push this forecast forward, on and off showers expected out to about the 21st or the 22nd until they dry up for good, and then you can see more shower activity expected after about the 23rd or the 24th of September, and this stuff could be a little bit heavier than what we have been talking about in the last couple of days. So definitely a little bit more interesting weather coming through for far north Queensland. You can see rainfall accumulations, like I said, absolutely nothing to write home about at all, especially throughout the course of this weekend. This is a look at 5-day rainfall accumulations. I mean, we're talking about falls between 20 to 60 millimetres, which is drop in the bucket type stuff for far north Queensland. Isolated heavier accumulations to 100 millimetres are possible into the mountainous areas, but again, really insignificant rainfall accumulations forecast up there. Around Cairns, falls between 5 to 10 millimetres are possible. Same deal with Townsville, but probably on the lesser side of that, between 0 to 5 millimetres, and some better rainfall accumulations are possible, albeit they'll be fewer and further between out into the Cape York Peninsula, with showers and thunderstorms forecast there on Saturday. Pushing this forecast modelling forward, you can see towards the end of September in the 5-day period after the 21st, rainfall accumulations do actually look a little bit healthier on the forecast modelling here, up to 100 millimetres. So again, widespread falls up to around that 100 to 150 millimetre mark look to be a possibility in the last week of September. But again, it is just drop in the bucket type stuff for far north Queensland. This is not the 2 or 3 or 400 millimetre rainfall accumulations that we're used to talking about in just a few months. This is just really insignificant, and it is kind of just precursor stuff. It's a little bit of seasoning before the wet season comes through, if that does make sense. Between the major forecast modelling, the GFS is also on board with this rainfall, which is good to see. It means that we've got some congruency between major forecast models. The Icon's very rarely on board with rainfall up and towards far north Queensland, and that's no different in this run here. The Axis is now calling for a little bit more significant rainfall coming through, in particularly this weekend. But again, I would like to take this forecast with a bit of salt. So we will keep a very close eye on things up in far north Queensland, but at this point in time, we're not expecting anything crazy until at least October, and more likely around that mid-October sort of time frame when the rainfall does actually begin to properly pipe up here and there across the Cape York Peninsula. And that of course means rainfall piping up for the Cassowary Coast and the Daintree rainforest. Interesting stuff, that's for sure, but you can see up in far north Queensland, dry and sunny today. In fact, by the looks of things, a little bit of fog around. Temperatures are definitely starting to warm up there, so is the humidity, but you can see those southeasterly winds into the Coral Sea not blowing very hard at all, which means rainfall still is a few days away. We're not talking about anything coming through anytime soon. Let's talk about winter weather systems now. We've still got a few of them on the forecast modelling. I'll start things off over into the southeast of the nation, and we've got that high pressure ridge coming through in the next couple of days, which is going to keep things mostly dry. You can see Tasmania still expected to be impacted by the roaring 40 trade flow, which you would expect for this time of the year in a few coastal locations through Victoria and South Australia. Expecting a few showers through tonight into tomorrow morning. Those showers will pick up a little bit for Tasmania through tomorrow morning into early tomorrow afternoon, but that westerly trade flow really not bringing in much rainfall, 10 millimetres at the upper end. Monday we'll see rainfall return properly for southeastern Australia. A weak cold front moving through on Monday morning into Monday afternoon. This will then move in towards Tasmania as a moderate cold front, and rainfall accumulations between 10 to 40 millimetres possible for the west coast there. Showers are going to be ongoing through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday for the west coast of Tasmania. We're finally easing off a little bit on Thursday before another and a little bit of a stronger cold front comes through around the 18th or the 19th of September. That's next Thursday or Friday respectively. A stronger cold front looks to be expected around the 20th of September, and we have seen this on the forecast model trends for the last couple of days now. With this negative swing in the Indian Ocean dipole, we do see increased moisture and increased energy for some of these winter storms through South Australia, New South Wales and Victoria, and that looks to be no different around the 20th of September as well. We do get that sort of cut-off low pressure system activity dragging in a lot of moisture from the Great Australian Bight and just a lot of moisture in general, and it looks like we may see some strong low pressure system activity around the 20th, either a few days before or a few days after. The GFS forecast model wants absolutely none of it by the looks of things, and same with the Icon forecast model. Actually, they're not saying anything about a low pressure system developing, so we will take this one with a little bit of a pretty sizable pinch of salt actually, but definitely around the 20th of September could be a time to watch for some rainfall and some cut-off low pressure system activity into Victoria especially, but also around Tasmania, New South Wales and South Australia. Definitely going to be something that I'm going to keep a close eye on in the next couple of weeks, that's for sure. Looking a little bit more, a little bit further beyond that, rainfall forecasts become very uncertain as we get out towards the later parts of September, but there definitely looks to be a little bit more rainfall coming through for the west coast of Tasmania at the very least. But we're definitely in this changeover period now where these winter storms are now pulling further south of southeastern Australia or south from mainland Australia, and it looks like that rainfall is now going to begin to draw further south from Tasmania in the next couple of weeks as well. And by October, I mean, we're not talking about much in the way of winter storm activity across southeastern Australia. It's a similar story over in the southwest of WA as well. You can see, whilst we've got that strong cold front right now, and that's keeping things cool, calm and collected, temperatures are actually freezing cold through parts of the southwest. It's -2 this morning at Sum and Gums, 0 at Lake Grace and 0 at Wandering. No surprises there. We're not liking these cold temperatures. If we do see frosts around the southwest, it's going to ruin what they've had, what a very good cropping season that they've had. We're looking at another cold front coming through on Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. The main story of this one is going to come through Saturday evening, but it's not expected to be too strong at all. Showers and more storms coming through on Sunday and into early Monday morning, so another weekend washout expected before the boss's weather returns until about late Wednesday or Thursday next week, with wet and horrible weekends and fine and sunny working weeks by the looks of things. Rainfall is expected to be pretty much on and off between the 17th out to about the 20th of September, and then pushing things forward beyond that, another classic Great Australian Bight high pressure system develops, and that keeps us dry until about the end of September by the looks of things. Good news there. Looking very forward to the sun. I went out for a fish yesterday and it was absolutely marvellous weather, so some more of that would be very, very much appreciated, that's for sure. Have a look at temperatures though across Western Australia. They are going to begin to climb, especially after about the 18th or the 19th of September. You can see on the 18th we're expecting temperatures into the mid to high 30s across the Kimberley region. No surprises there for this time of the year. Temperatures then into the high 30s on the 19th. Temperatures getting a little bit warmer than that on Saturday into the Kimberley region, even into the early 40s around Kununurra and Wyndham, and then those warm temperatures begin to build for the Northern Territory after about the 21st or the 22nd of September. So the warm weather is not far away at all. And have a look at this on the 24th of September here. I know this is just a forecast model looking quite long range, but outside of Kalbarri and Geraldton, mid 30 degree days or low 30 degree days outside of Geraldton, with the 30 degree line extending as far south as Moora and Killarney. It's always a very exciting time of the year, at least for me, especially when we start to see these 30 degree temperatures make it into the wheat belt. It means that summer is not far away for the Perth metro area, and I guarantee you as soon as summer comes, we're going to be begging for winter to return. That's just how we are in Perth and how a lot of people are around our capital cities in Australia. That's going to do it though for today's weather forecast update. There's not an awful lot to be talking about in the next couple of weeks, so make sure you check out the Facebook page for some more interesting stuff, including updates on Lake Eyre and other interesting long-range weather forecasts that I have found. Thank you so much for all the support recently. Click the subscribe button and the like button as well, and also the hype button. I'm not sure what it does, but a lot of you are clicking it, so I do really thank you for that support. But that is going to do it for me today, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.